Kang is returning. And here's why Marvel has no way around it. There are some theories that make you stop, rewind, and say, wait, that actually makes sense. And today's theory is one of them. I've broken down these details in such a way that they'll leave you shocked. And trust me, you'll only understand the full theory if you watch till the very end. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just another Marvel fan theory. It's the roadmap for what's coming next in the Multiverse Saga, and why King the Conqueror can never truly die. Welcome back to Movie Cast. I'm Liam Harrison, and today we're going deeper than ever before into the mystery surrounding Kang's supposed end. Marvel wants us to believe his story is over, that Loki's sacrifice wrapped it all up. But if you've been following the clues, both on screen and off, you'll see that this was never the end. It was just the setup for his return. And not only that, it might just be the key to how Marvel plans to connect the Multiverse Saga to the next era, the Mutant Saga. Now, let's start from the moment that got everyone talking. A small, seemingly innocent headline that turned into one of the most revealing moves Marvel has made in years. 2 months ago, Marvel quietly launched what they called the $10,000 challenge. The idea? They were asking fans, writers, and theorists to submit the best reason why every Kang variant could die. The winner would receive $10,000 and an official feature on Marvel's creative spotlight. Sounds simple, right? But here's where it gets strange. Why would a studio pay 10 grand to explore every possible way to kill off Kang? After supposedly ending his story in Loki Season 2? If Kang was truly gone, if the multiverse had been sealed and the TVA had locked every door, there would be no reason to run this kind of creative prompt. The only logical reason is this. Marvel isn't burying Kang, they're building him back up. They're quietly preparing the next stage of his evolution behind the curtain. Think of it like what they did with Thanos in the early MCU phases. We didn't see him much, just glimpses, hints, post-credit teases. But behind the scenes, every film was secretly positioning him. Kang is now in that same phase of silence right before the storm. And if you think I'm overanalyzing this, just listen to what Jonathan Majors himself said not long ago. During an interview at a small indie film panel, someone in the audience asked about Kang, whether he'd ever return, especially after all the chaos that surrounded both his character and the real-life controversies. Major smiled, hesitated, and said, "I can't say anything, but in the multiverse, anything is possible." Now, if you've watched enough Marvel press tours, you know that when an actor says, "I can't say anything," what they really mean is, "I know exactly what's coming." And the way Majors said it, calm, careful, but with that faint grin that said he was holding something back, told me everything. He's coming back. Not as some new character, not as a side cameo. He's returning as Kang. Maybe in a new form, maybe from another timeline, but the Conqueror is far from done. And to understand how this could happen, we have to go back to where we last saw him, in Loki Season 2. Now, Loki Season 2 ended on one of the most haunting poetic visuals in the MCU. Loki, once the god of mischief, became the god of stories. The one who now sits at the center of time, holding together the infinite branches of the multiverse. Every path that once led to another He Who Remains was cut off. Every door was sealed. The TVA had seemingly done the impossible, ending the cycle of Kang's rise. But that's where the illusion lies. Because before Loki took his throne, He Who Remains warned him, "If you think you can control this, you can't. My variants will always rise." That line wasn't just a threat. It was prophecy. The multiverse isn't a simple tree. It's an infinite web of cause and effect where every decision spawns a new possibility. The TVA might have cut the branches, but the roots of that tree go deeper than time itself. As long as there is a single decision made differently, a single ripple in the time stream, Kang can be reborn. You can prune the branches, but you can't erase the seed. That seed, King's essence, exists outside linear time. He's not like Thanos, who can be killed once and gone forever. Kang is a paradox. He is one man stretched across centuries, existing simultaneously in the past, present, and future. Even if one variant dies, another already exists, waiting. So while Loki might have frozen the current cycle, he hasn't ended it. The TVA might be watching, but they're watching an infinite ocean through a single window. Somewhere beyond that glass, the waves are already shifting. And when they do, Kang will return. But what's fascinating isn't just how he returns, it's why Marvel needs him to return. Because here's the thing, Marvel can't finish the Multiverse Saga without Kang. Think about the structure of the current phases. We've had Loki, Quantumania, and soon we're heading toward Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars. Every one of these stories revolves around a single thread, the chaos of infinite timelines and the man who sought to control them. Remove Kang and that entire narrative collapses. Kang isn't just another villain, he's the glue that binds the Multiverse Saga together. And that's why Marvel's $10,000 challenge wasn't a death certificate, it was a creative smokescreen, a distraction. They wanted fans to think about Kang's death while they were planning his resurrection. Because if you can convince people something is over, you can surprise them when it returns. But there's an even deeper layer to all of this. A layer that connects Kang's story not just to the multiverse, but to the very next era of Marvel, the Mutant Saga. Now I know that sounds like a huge leap, from time travel and multiversal wars to mutants and ancient powers. But that's where the genius of Marvel's long-term storytelling comes in. And if you know your comic history, you already know where this connection begins. It starts in ancient Egypt. In the comics, Kang has had many faces: Iron Lad, Immortus, the Conqueror himself. But one of his most fascinating incarnations is Ramatut. After years of conquering across time, Kang travels back to ancient Egypt. There, he learns of a powerful being who will soon be born, a mutant child destined to become Ansabanur. To us, that name means one thing: Apocalypse, the first mutant. Ramatut's plan was simple: to find the child before anyone else and raise him as his own weapon, molding him into the ultimate enforcer. But destiny had other plans. A desert warrior named Baal discovers the baby first and raises him with a brutal creed: only the strong survive. When Baal dies, the young Nur's rage explodes, unlocking his powers and forging him into Apocalypse, a godlike being who believes that evolution is born through suffering. When Ramatut realizes the monster he's helped create, he flees back into the future, a moment that would define both their destinies. And here's where things get interesting for the MCU. If Marvel chooses to introduce mutants through the Mutant Saga after Secret Wars, they already have the perfect doorway through Kang's Egyptian persona. Ramatut can serve as the bridge between the multiverse era and the age of mutants. It would tie the entire MCU together across thousands of years of history, from Loki's time web to Apocalypse's rise. But we'll get deeper into that connection later, because it's not just about legacy or continuity. It's about inevitability. Kang's story is a loop. Every victory, every defeat, every version of himself leads to another. It's like time itself refuses to let him fade. You can't kill a man who lives outside of linear existence. And that's why Marvel has no way around him. They can delay his appearance, rewrite his tone, or even replace his face. But the narrative core of Kang is too deeply embedded in the DNA of the Multiverse Saga. Without him, there's no logical path to Secret Wars. Now, I want to pause here and look at this from another angle. Not the story, but the strategy. Because Marvel has always played the long game, and Kang's absence might just be their smartest move yet. After Quantumania, fan reception was split. Some said the movie felt messy. Others praised Major's performance, but questioned the direction. Marvel could have easily panicked, cut ties, scrapped the plans, move on. But instead they went silent. No recasts, no denials, no confirmations. Just silence. And that's the same silence they used right before they revealed Thanos in Avengers. It's the silence before the snap. I believe Marvel is using this gap to retool the character, not erase him. They're allowing time for the audience's perception to reset, for anticipation to build again. When King does return, it won't be the same King from Quantumania. It'll be something darker, more focused, more mythic. And when that happens, the fandom's reaction won't be confusion, it'll be shock. Because we thought we'd seen the end, but the end was just another beginning. Remember, in Loki's timeline, he who remains said his death would unleash chaos. But what if that chaos isn't random? What if it's leading toward a greater form? One that ties King's fall to another's rise. Someone like Dr. Doom. And that's the part of the theory that we'll unravel next. How King's downfall could set the stage for Doom's ascension. And why, in the grand design of Marvel's multiverse, one cannot exist without the other. So where we left off, King's story had seemingly come to an end. Loki sits on his time throne, the TVA monitors the sacred timelines, and the audience believes the Conqueror has been erased from existence. But Marvel doesn't erase, they repurpose. And this is where the next big player steps in, Dr. Doom. For months now, we've heard whispers, leaks, set photos, insider reports, all hinting that Doom is being groomed as the next central villain. But what almost no one's talking about is how Doom's rise depends on King's fall. The two aren't just connected, they're reflections of each other. Let me explain. In the comics, Doom and King have a rivalry that spans time itself. King sees himself as the master of destiny, a man who shapes history with logic and power. Doom, on the other hand, sees himself as the rightful ruler of reality, one who bends the universe through will and intellect. They're mirror images, one ruled by time, the other by ambition. And that tension is exactly what Marvel is building toward. Here's how it fits. In Quantumania, King's defeat left the multiverse unstable. The quantum realm was shattered, timelines started bleeding together, and the TVA's control became fragile. Loki's sacrifice patched it temporarily. But in doing so, he created something new, a static equilibrium where time holds itself in balance. Now imagine someone, Doom, discovering this balance and learning how to manipulate it. He wouldn't need to travel across time like Kang, he'd need to own it. That's the transition Marvel's setting up, from Kang's multiversal chaos to Doom's controlled reality. Kang represents the storm. Doom represents the empire built after the storm passes. And if you know Secret Wars, you know exactly how that ends, with Doom creating Battleworld, a patchwork planet made from the ruins of countless destroyed universes. That world only exists because the multiverse collapses. And who's responsible for that collapse? Kang. That's why his death isn't the end, it's the catalyst. Marvel needs him to fall so Doom can rise. Think of it like chess. Kang is the queen, the most powerful piece on the board, but not the one who ends the game. Doom is the king, the piece that survives to claim the final move. So when fans ask, why bring Kang back? The answer is simple. Because without him, there's no path to Doom. You can't build Battleworld without the multiversal war that Kang triggers. And once you understand that, the whole picture of Marvel's next 3 phases starts to take shape. Let's rewind for a second to something Loki Season 2 hinted at, but never explained outright. The concept of he who remains being one of many, existing across infinite realities. We saw countless King variants in Quantumania's post-credit scene, the Council of Kangs. But the detail most people missed is that not all of them were villains. Some were scientists, explorers, even protectors of their timelines. What if Marvel is quietly preparing the return of a different king, one who's not purely evil, but essential? That's where the story could take a fascinating turn. Because imagine this. As the multiverse begins to destabilize again in the next Avengers film, the heroes realize that the only person who truly understands how to fix it is Kang himself. Not a king, the king, the one we thought was gone. Maybe he's trapped in the quantum realm, maybe in the time stream, maybe outside reality altogether, but he's still there, watching. And when the chaos gets too great, the Avengers have to make the ultimate choice. Bring back the Conqueror to stop something worse. That's something worse? Doom. Now I know this might sound crazy, but look at Marvel's pattern. They've done this before, turning villains into reluctant allies when the stakes rise beyond comprehension. Think Loki, think Nebula, even Zemo at one point. Marvel loves redemption arcs built around necessity. Kang's potential redemption could be one of the most ambitious narrative plays the MCU has ever attempted. Because remember, in his heart, Kang isn't just a conqueror. He's a man trying to master fate. Every version of himself is a failed attempt to control the uncontrollable, time. And that obsession doesn't come from pure evil. It comes from heartbreak. But we'll save that for later. For now, let's stay focused on what happens when the Multiverse Saga collides with the Mutant Saga, because that's where everything truly comes full circle. We already touched on Kang's Egyptian identity, Rama-Tit, and his connection to Apocalypse. But the deeper you go into that story, the more you realize how deliberate that link feels for the MCU's future. Marvel's next major arc after Secret Wars has been rumored to revolve around mutants. Not just the X-Men, but the origin of mutant kind itself. And where does that origin begin? With Unsabanur, the first mutant. Rama-Tut's storyline gives Marvel the perfect gateway to that history. Picture this. After the events of Secret Wars, the multiverse resets. Some realities merge, others vanish. But among the surviving threads, one timeline remains anchored in the distant past, ancient Egypt. There, a mysterious traveler arrives from the future. His technology is unlike anything the world has ever seen. He calls himself Rama-Tut. He claims he has come to bring order to chaos, to build a kingdom that will stand for eternity. But his true goal isn't to rule Egypt, it's to find a child. A boy born with powers that defy comprehension. That boy is Ansabanur. This setup would not only introduce mutants in a mythic, grounded way, but it would tie the origin of mutant evolution to the Multiverse Saga, making Kang indirectly responsible for the birth of the mutant gene's first awakening. And if you think that's too far-fetched, remember, in the comics, Apocalypse knows his destiny is linked to Rama-Tut. He even says, "You taught me to evolve." That's not just storytelling symmetry, it's poetic inevitability. Because Kang's obsession with control mirrors Apocalypse's obsession with survival. One seeks to conquer time, the other seeks to conquer evolution. Both represent humanity's desire to overcome nature, to become gods. It's destiny feeding on itself. And the MCU can use that symmetry to create a transition that feels seamless. Kang's fall in Secret Wars could literally give rise to the age of mutants in Phase 7, but that's only one side of the plan. The other, the darker, more emotional side, lies in Kang's own humanity. Here's something most fans overlook. Kang's story, at its core, is a love story. In the 2021 Kang the Conqueror comic run, we learn that all his ambition, all his rage, and all his time hopping comes from one tragic motivation, his love for Ravonna Renslayer. Across countless timelines, he tries to save her. In one, she's a warrior queen who dies defending her people. In another, she's his rival, the one who kills him. In every loop, the result is the same. Kang loses her. And every time he loses her, he resets the timeline, trying again, and again, and again. That's the hidden tragedy of the Conqueror. He's not fighting to dominate time. He's fighting to rewrite laws. That's why he's so compelling. He's not a monster. He's a man trapped inside his own obsession. And that's exactly where Marvel could take the character next. Imagine a future MCU film, maybe the Kang Dynasty, where we see fragments of his past lives. Glimpses of him holding Ravonna's hand as the world collapses, or watching her fade from existence as timelines shatter. That emotional layer transforms him from a villain into something far more complex, a tragic god. And here's the kicker. It could also explain his survival. What if, when Loki rewove time, he accidentally preserved fragments of Kang's consciousness? Echoes of him scattered across the time stream, not physical bodies, but emotional imprints tied to moments of love and loss. Those echoes could manifest as new variants. Not clones, but living memories trying to reassemble themselves. And one of those fragments could become the next king we meet. That would make his return not just inevitable, but poetic. He wouldn't come back for conquest. He'd come back for closure. And that, ironically, might be what saves the multiverse. But before we get too far into redemption, let's ground this theory in something concrete. Marvel's business reality. Because whether fans like it or not, storytelling in the MCU has always been as strategic as it is creative. Jonathan Majors, the actor behind Kang, went through a public storm, legal issues, fan division, studio uncertainty. For a moment, it looked like Marvel might cut him loose completely. But then something unexpected happened. Reports surfaced that Majors had completed probation, fulfilled all obligations, and more importantly, that Marvel executives had not officially recast him. Behind closed doors, his performance was still being praised, complex, intense, unlike anything we've seen. Now, Marvel's always been cautious when it comes to public image, but they've also believed in redemption. Robert Downey Jr. is the perfect example. Before becoming Iron Man, his career was nearly destroyed by controversy, and yet Marvel gave him a chance. That decision changed cinematic history. So if they truly believe in second chances, this might be the same kind of turning point. Because let's face it, Jonathan Majors was Kang. His performance wasn't just acting, it was magnetic. Every variant he played felt distinct, from the unhinged brilliance of He Who Remains to the quiet menace of the quantum realm Kang. You believed him, even when you didn't trust him. Replacing that kind of presence isn't easy, and Marvel knows it. Which brings us back to the core theory. They're not erasing him, they're waiting. They're waiting for the right moment, the right story beat, the right emotional setup, so that when Kang returns, it feels earned. And trust me, when he does, it'll be one of those moments that redefines the MCU's future. Now there's one more thread we have to pull before we close this act, something that ties all of these puzzle pieces together. The idea that Kang can never die. It sounds dramatic, but if you think about it in terms of how the MCU treats time, it's completely logical. Kang isn't a linear being. He's a fixed constant across infinite variables. Every time you think you've seen his end, what you're really witnessing is just one iteration of an endless loop. He's Iron Lad in his youth, the idealistic boy who wants to fix his mistakes. He's Ramatut in his arrogance, the conqueror who rules over men. He's the conqueror in his prime, the warrior who believes he's mastered time. And he's Immortus in his age, the weary god who's seen it all before. Each form is Kang, each death, another chapter. You can kill a man, but you can't kill time. And that's what Kang represents, time personified. The endless cycle of rise and fall, love and loss, creation and destruction. That's why no matter how Marvel spins it, he will always come back. The TVA can prune, Loki can weave, Doom can conquer. But in the end, time always loops back to the conqueror. But how exactly does that loop bring us to Secret Wars? How does Kang's collapse ignite the war that tears the multiverse apart and lead to the rise of Doom's battle world? That's where we head next. Because in the next act, I'll break down the secret connection between King's final sacrifice, Doom's manipulation of reality, and the birth of the ultimate war. The one that ends every universe and begins the next. And when you see how it all fits together, you'll realize King was never the villain. He was the foundation of everything. Every ending in the MCU has secretly been a beginning. And King's supposed death is no exception. Because when the Conqueror falls, the multiverse doesn't stabilize, it shatters. At the end of Quantumania, we saw him pulled into the heart of his own engine, absorbed by the very power he tried to control. Fans assumed that meant he was gone, erased from existence. But remember what I said before. King doesn't die, he divides. The quantum realm isn't a graveyard, it's a nexus. It's where reality folds in on itself, where time runs sideways. Being pulled into that core didn't destroy Kang, it scattered him. Fragments of his essence now exist across the timelines, echoes waiting to reform. And when those echoes begin resonating with one another, something terrifying happens. The timelines start collapsing inward. That collapse, the silent convergence of realities, is the first domino that leads directly to Secret Wars. Now here's what most people miss about the setup of Secret Wars in the comics. The event doesn't start because of a villain's attack. It starts because the universe itself breaks under the pressure of overlapping realities, incursions, as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness already teased. An incursion happens when two universes collide, occupying the same space at the same time. One must be destroyed or both will be. Now, who caused those incursions in the comics? King's experiments with time, Doom's manipulation of energy, and the collapse of the Beyonders' design. All three tied together. And the MCU has already introduced the first two. That means King's disappearance at the end of Quantumania and Loki's Time Tree finale are the ticking clock of the entire saga. Here's the theory in motion. Loki's web of time keeps the timeline separated, but it's not stable. It's under strain. And somewhere deep within the quantum realm, those scattered King fragments are beginning to resynchronize, like shards of a broken mirror pulling toward the same reflection. As they merge, they create gravitational ripples in the time stream. Those ripples are what caused the first incursions. So ironically, Loki's act of saving time and King's act of conquering it are two sides of the same disaster. That's the poetry of the Multiverse Saga. And when those incursions start spreading, the TVA will realize they can't stop them. They'll need help. Whose help? The last person they ever thought they'd call, a variant of King himself. Picture this opening for Avengers, the Kang Dynasty. The TVA is collapsing. Temporal strands are snapping. Universes blinking out of existence. Loki sends a message through the time stream. We need the Conqueror. Cut to the quantum realm, dark, silent, glowing with the faint pulse of King's core. Something moves within the light. It's not the same King we knew. He's fragmented, changed, haunted. A being made of time scars and broken memories. And this version doesn't want to rule anymore. He wants to end the loop. He emerges, not as a villain, but as the only man who truly understands what's coming. A man who knows that every victory over time only leads to more suffering. That's the twist. Marvel's next big move could turn King from the ultimate conqueror into the reluctant savior. He tells the Avengers that incursions have begun, that every universe will soon collide, and that one man is already taking advantage of the chaos, Victor Von Doom. Because while King was scattered, Doom was watching. Now let's talk about Doom's masterstroke, the plan that makes him the architect of Secret Wars. While the TVA obsesses over pruning timelines, Doom studies them. In the comics, Doom's genius surpasses almost every other being alive, and he doesn't just want power, he wants perfection. When the incursions begin, Doom doesn't panic, he investigates. He traces their cause to King's temporal fractures and to something deeper, the fabric of creation itself. He discovers that the multiverse was engineered by an ancient force known as the Beyonders, and that Kang's meddling accidentally exposed the seams of their design. Now imagine how the MCU adapts this. Instead of literal Beyonders, Doom could uncover the raw code of reality, the DNA of universes written into time's very fabric. And through his experiments, he finds a way to rewrite that code. He doesn't destroy the universes. He merges them. That's how Battleworld is born. Not a single planet floating in space, but a Frankenstein patchwork of realities stitched together, a desperate attempt by Doom to save existence on his own terms. And that act makes him both savior and tyrant, because in his mind he's preserving life. In everyone else's eyes he's playing God. Here's where Kang's story threads perfectly into this. Kang believes time must be conquered to be saved. Doom believes reality must be conquered to be saved. They're the same philosophy expressed in different forms, two men trying to fix what can't be fixed. And in Secret Wars, those ideologies collide. The Conqueror versus the Creator. Kang's fragmented self, reborn through time, confronting Doom's fabricated world. That's the real endgame. Now think about how that would unfold emotionally. The heroes, the remaining Avengers, the TVA remnants, and perhaps even Loki himself stand caught between two gods. On one side, Doom's perfect world, stable, orderly, safe. On the other, Kang's desperate plea to restore the natural flow of time, even if it means chaos. And in the middle, the question that defines the entire Multiverse Saga: is existence worth saving if it's no longer free? This is where Marvel's storytelling brilliance could shine again, because the battle wouldn't just be physical, it would be philosophical. Doom wants to freeze reality, to create one eternal version of everything. Kang wants to free reality from repetition, even if it destroys him. Loki, watching both sides, realizes the truth. Neither of them can be allowed to win. And that realization sets the stage for the ultimate sacrifice, one that breaks the loop once and for all. But before we get to that final resolution, let's pull back and look at how Marvel's been seeding this for years. If you trace the breadcrumbs, every post-credit scene since Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania hints at Kang's return. The Council of Kangs, thousands of variants cheering in the shadows of an arena, wasn't just a tease. It was the announcement of a civil war within time itself. Those Kangs aren't allies. They're competitors. Every one of them believes he's the true heir to destiny. And that internal war is what triggers the multiversal collapse. In fact, one of those variants, the pharaoh-like Ramatut, might even escape into the past to ensure his survival. That escape could be the very moment that births the mutant saga. Another variant, Iron Lad, a young idealistic version of Kang, could become the emotional core of the Young Avengers storyline, bridging that team into the larger conflict. See how it all fits? Every project Marvel's working on, from Loki to Deadpool 3, from Fantastic Four to Young Avengers, feeds into this singular loop. Kang isn't gone. He's multiplied. And as each fragment of him resurfaces, the multiverse becomes more unstable, pushing the MCU closer and closer to that inevitable point, the collapse that births Secret Wars. Now let's talk about Doctor Strange. Because if there's one character who's going to stand at the crossroads between Kang and Doom, it's him. In Multiverse of Madness, Strange already witnessed an incursion firsthand. His variant caused the destruction of an entire universe, proving just how fragile reality had become. At the end of that film, he meets Clea, and together, they head into the dark dimension to fix an incursion. That thread hasn't been resolved yet, and that's no coincidence. What if the incursion they're investigating isn't caused by random chaos, but by Kang's scattered energy trying to reform? What if the energy signatures Clea detects are echoes of the Conqueror? That would make Doctor Strange 3 the bridge between Multiverse of Madness and the Kang Dynasty. Strange's exploration could accidentally awaken a dormant fragment of Kang, one that possesses knowledge beyond any sorcerer's comprehension. And when Strange tries to contain it, that spark spreads, causing the first major reality breach. Everything after that spirals into the events of the Kang Dynasty, as heroes across universes realize they're all facing the same enemy, time itself collapsing inward. By the time we reach Secret Wars, Doom steps in, offering a solution to the madness. But of course, his solution requires control. Absolute control. Now let's pause and imagine what Kang's emotional state would be at this point in the story. He's seen every version of himself fail. He's watched timelines crumble, universes die, and the woman he loves vanish again and again. When he returns, he won't come back as a confident conqueror. He'll come back broken, humbled, and that's what makes him dangerous. Because broken men don't want to rule anymore. They want to end pain no matter the cost. Kang's goal won't be domination. It'll be oblivion. He'll want to destroy the concept of time itself, to erase the cycle so no one else can suffer. That's where the tragedy deepens. Because in trying to end suffering, he becomes the ultimate cause of it. And Doom, seeing this, uses it. He exploits Kang's despair to steal his technology, his energy, his temporal core, the very power that allows him to build Battleworld. That's the pivot. Doom doesn't defeat Kang in battle. He harvests him. He turns the Conqueror's loop into the engine of his new world. In that single act, Doom becomes the god of the multiverse, the one who rewrites reality using Kang's essence as fuel. That's not just brilliant storytelling, it's symbolic. Kang represents time. Doom represents will. When will consumes time, you get creation, Battleworld. And when that happens, the Multiverse Saga ends, and the Mutant Saga begins. Because remember, Doom's new world will be made from fragments of destroyed universes, meaning characters from everywhere can now coexist. The X-Men, Deadpool, the Fantastic Four, even the Sony Spider variants. All those pieces fused into one reality would be the aftermath of Secret Wars. That's how Marvel resets the board. It's not a reboot, it's a rebirth. And guess who still lingers, quietly, within the cracks of that new world? Kang. Because you can't erase time from the story of creation. Even if his body is gone, even if Doom has taken his power, his consciousness, that fractured, echoing mind will remain embedded in the timeline's code, waiting. Maybe as a whisper, maybe as a ghost. Maybe as a new identity altogether, Immortus, or even a future version of Doom himself, twisted by Kang's influence. That's the cyclical beauty of the Conqueror. He doesn't die. He evolves. And when the Mutant Saga begins, that evolution could continue through Rama Tut, setting the stage for Apocalypse and the next grand saga. By this point in the theory, we start to see the genius of Marvel's architecture. They've built a story that functions like a time loop. Every ending feeds the next beginning. Kang's death births Doom's rise. Doom's creation births the mutant world. And the mutant world eventually gives rise to Rama Tut, bringing Kang full circle once again. That's not coincidence. That's design. And the $10,000 challenge Marvel launched, asking fans how every Kang could die, suddenly looks less like marketing and more like meta storytelling. They weren't just asking how to kill Kang. They were asking how to rebirth him. Because every creative death someone imagined only strengthens the mythology of his immortality. He's the character who proves that time always wins. And if you think about it, that's the perfect message for the MCU right now. An era rebuilding itself, redefining what comes next. Time breaks. Time heals. Time loops back. And when it does, it always finds its conqueror. Now, in the final act, we'll take everything we've built. Kang's resurrection, Doom's ascension, the creation of Battleworld, and the birth of the Mutant Saga, and bring it all to one conclusion. The moment when the Conqueror's purpose finally becomes clear. Because in the end, This entire saga isn't about death or destruction. It's about inevitability, and inevitability always wears a blue faceplate. Everything comes full circle when Doom finally gets what he wants. Battleworld stands, stitched from broken realities, a monument to ego and desperation. Every surviving hero and villain wakes up there, memories fractured, skies cracked with colors that don't belong to any single universe. Doom calls himself the savior of existence. But when I look at that world, I don't see salvation. I see a cage built out of stolen time. Because deep beneath Battleworld's surface, the engine keeping it alive is Kang. Not his body, his essence. His chronal core powers Doom's godhood. Every sunrise, every heartbeat of that new world runs on the fragments of the Conqueror. And that's where the final twist begins. While Doom reigns, strange distortions start spreading through his perfect reality. Time hiccups. Whole cities blink forward and backward a few seconds, as if the planet itself is remembering a past that shouldn't exist. That's Kang fighting back, not through strength, but through inevitability. You can cage a man, but you can't cage the concept he represents. Loki feels it first. He knows the rhythm of time better than anyone. He realizes that the only way to end Doom's rule isn't to kill him, but to free the loop that powers him. So in the ruins of Castle Doom, Loki gathers the remaining Avengers, mutants, and sorcerers. Doctor Strange brings the last flicker of the Time Stone's energy. Captain Marvel channels the core of another dying sun, and Wanda, reborn after her fall, offers chaos itself. Together, they do the unthinkable. They break the engine. When Kang's essence erupts, Doom's reality begins to unravel. Battleworld starts collapsing into raw timelines again, folding and folding until there's nothing left but light and memory. And within that storm, Kang reforms. No armor, no throne, just a man surrounded by infinity. He could conquer again. He could rebuild everything exactly as it was. But this time, he doesn't. He looks at Loki, at Strange, at the faces of people who've lived and died countless times because of his obsession, and he finally understands the truth. He who remains tried to tell him long ago. Time doesn't need a ruler. It needs a storyteller. So Kang lets go. He channels all that fractured energy back into the timelines, restoring choice, chaos, and possibility. Doom falls, stripped of his godhood, and the multiverse resets, clean, open, alive. When the light fades, the heroes wake in a single, unified universe. It looks familiar, but different. The same Earth now humming with new potential. Across the globe, ordinary people begin showing signs of mutation, an evolutionary ripple triggered by the reignition of time itself. That's the birth of the mutant era. And if you trace that ripple back far enough, you'll find its echo in the past, in ancient Egypt, where a traveler named Ramatut once searched for a child destined to change the world. Kang's shadow stretches backward as well as forward, linking the dawn of mutants to the end of the multiverse. The loop is complete. The conqueror becomes the creator. The man who tried to master time becomes the reason it exists at all. When I step back and look at this grand pattern, it feels less like a comic book storyline and more like a myth, a modern legend about the futility of control and the beauty of chaos. Kang's return isn't just inevitable because of fan demand or studio plans. It's inevitable because his story is the spine of Marvel's entire cosmic narrative. Without him, there's no multiverse. Without the multiverse, there's no Secret Wars. And without that collapse, there's no birth of the mutant saga. He is the hinge between eras, the ghost in every reboot, the whisper that says, time always finds a way. So when Marvel asked the world for a reason every Kang variant could die, maybe the real answer was this. They all can, just never at the same time. One version always survives to carry the story forward. And that's why Marvel has no way around him. Jonathan Majors' smile in that interview suddenly makes perfect sense. He wasn't teasing a cameo. He was acknowledging a truth baked into the multiverse itself. Even if the face changes, the idea of King endures. Because ideas, like time, don't stay buried. They evolve. And that brings us here, to the end of this breakdown. If you've stayed with me through every layer of this theory, thank you. You've just traveled through the rise and fall of gods, across timelines, into the heart of Marvel's next decade of storytelling. Whether King returns as Ramatut, Immortus, Iron Lad, or something entirely new, one thing is certain. The Conqueror's story isn't over. It's just beginning again. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more fans who love these long-form Marvel theories. Share it with your friends, and if you want to support the next big breakdown, you can drop a super thanks. Every $20 donation keeps MovieCast running and lets me keep building theories this detailed for you. I'm Liam Harrison, and this has been King is Returning, and why Marvel has no way around it. Until next time, remember, time doesn't move forward or backward in the MCU. It moves in circles. And somewhere in that circle, the Conqueror is waiting.